Welcome back to the Stoic Tide. There comes a moment in life when you realize that explaining yourself has become a quiet burden. You replay conversations in your mind. You justify your choices. You defend your silence. You try to make others understand what they were never meant to understand. And slowly, without noticing, your energy begins to leak away. Stoic wisdom and Carl Jung psychology both point to the same truth. The more you explain yourself, the more power you give away. Strength does not announce itself. Depth does not argue. And a grounded mind does not beg for approval. This series is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about becoming centered. When you stop explaining yourself, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing validation. You stop managing other people's emotions. You stop shrinking to fit expectations that were never yours. Over these 6 chapters, you will learn how silence becomes strength, how boundaries create respect, and how self-trust grows when words become deliberate instead of defensive. This is not about saying less. It is about saying what matters. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The hidden cost of explaining yourself. Most people do not realize how often they explain themselves. It happens automatically. Someone questions your choice, and you respond with reasons. Someone misunderstands you, and you rush to clarify. Someone disapproves, and you feel the urge to justify your path. At first, this seems harmless. It feels polite. It feels mature. But over time, it becomes exhausting. Every explanation carries energy. When you explain yourself too much, you spend that energy trying to control how others see you. Carl Jung believed that the self becomes fragmented when it depends too heavily on external validation. Each explanation pulls you further away from your center. You begin living outward instead of inward. The Stoics warned against this long before modern psychology existed. They taught that peace comes from focusing only on what is within your control. Other people's opinions are not within your control. Their understanding is not your responsibility. Yet when you over-explain, you behave as if their approval is necessary for your stability. This habit often begins early in life. Many people grow up learning that love must be earned through explanation. They learn to prove their worth, defend their feelings, and justify their boundaries. As adults, this turns into a constant need to be understood. But the truth is uncomfortable. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some only want reassurance. Some want control. Some simply want a reaction. When you explain yourself to people who are not listening, you are speaking into emptiness. And the emptiness does not respond with clarity. It responds with doubt. You start questioning your own choices. You wonder if you are wrong for feeling the way you do. You soften your truth to make it easier to swallow. Slowly, your confidence erodes. Jung spoke about the danger of living through the persona, the mask we wear to meet social expectations. Over-explaining strengthens that mask. You begin performing your life instead of living it. Your words become defensive instead of deliberate. You stop speaking from truth and start speaking from fear. Stoicism offers a quiet alternative. It teaches that your actions speak louder than your explanations. A calm refusal carries more authority than a long justification. A steady life makes arguments unnecessary. When you trust yourself, you do not rush to convince others. Silence, in this sense, is not weakness. It is containment. It is the ability to hold your ground without aggression. When you stop explaining yourself, you give others the space to reveal their intentions. Those who respect you will adjust. Those who depended on your explanations will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is not your problem. This is the first shift. Understanding that over-explaining is not kindness, but fear disguised as courtesy. It is the fear of being misjudged, the fear of being rejected, the fear of standing alone in your truth. But Stoicism teaches that inner stability does not come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. As you move forward, notice when the urge to explain appears. Notice how quickly it follows tension. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. You do not need to fight the habit yet. You only need to see it clearly. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your energy, and reclaimed energy becomes presence. When you stop explaining yourself, the first thing you notice is discomfort, not in others, but in yourself. You feel the urge to fill silence. You want to clarify, correct, and justify. This habit is deeply human. From childhood, many of us learned that being understood meant being safe. We explained to avoid punishment, to gain approval, or to keep peace. Over time, explanation became automatic. But Stoic wisdom teaches that not every discomfort needs a response. Silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness. It is restraint. And restraint is one of the strongest forms of self-mastery. Most people explain themselves because they fear being misunderstood. They worry about how they appear in the minds of others. Carl Jung warned that when we live only through the eyes of others, we lose contact with our true self. The Stoics said something similar long before him. Epictetus taught that we suffer not because of events, but because of our judgments about them. When you explain yourself too much, you are reacting to imagined judgments. You are trying to manage opinions that are not under your control. The moment you accept that misunderstanding is inevitable, you begin to feel lighter. You no longer chase clarity in every interaction. You choose peace instead. There is a quiet power in letting people think what they want. This does not mean you accept lies or injustice. It means you choose your battles carefully. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. If someone misunderstands you on purpose, explaining more only feeds the conflict. Silence, paired with consistent action, speaks louder than any argument. Over time, people learn who you are not from your words, but from your behavior. And those who refuse to see were never listening anyway. Stopping unnecessary explanations also strengthens your inner boundary. You begin to separate what is your responsibility from what is not. Your responsibility is your intention, your effort, and your character. Other people's interpretations belong to them. When you accept this boundary, your mind becomes calmer. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you. This is one of the Stoic rules for a stable life. Focus only on what you can control and release the rest without resentment. At first, others may react. Some will push for explanations. Some will feel uncomfortable with your silence. This is natural. Many people are used to access. They expect emotional transparency on demand. When you stop explaining, you quietly change the rules. You teach people how to treat you. Jung believed that individuation, becoming your true self, often leads to temporary loneliness, but that loneliness is not emptiness, it is space. And in that space, clarity grows. Silence also sharpens your awareness. When you stop rushing to explain, you begin to observe more. You listen more closely. You notice patterns in people's behavior. You see who respects your boundaries and who only values you when you perform. This awareness is not cynical. It is freeing. It allows you to invest your energy wisely. Stoicism is not about withdrawing from life, but about engaging with it intelligently. Silence is a tool, not a wall. There's another hidden benefit. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop lying to yourself. Many explanations are not for others, but for our own doubts. We explain to convince ourselves that our choices make sense. When you remove that habit, you are forced to face your truth. If something feels wrong, you cannot hide behind words. You must either change your action or accept the consequence. This honesty builds self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of unshakable confidence. In time, you will notice a shift. Conversations become cleaner. Your words become fewer, but more precise. You no longer feel drained after social interactions. You speak when it matters. You stay silent when it doesn't, and people begin to sense something different about you. Not arrogance, not distance, but calm authority. The kind that does not need explanation to exist. This is not the end of communication. It is the end of over-explanation. And that difference changes everything. As you continue to stop explaining yourself, something subtle but powerful begins to change: your relationship with your own thoughts. Before, you spoke quickly because your mind felt noisy. You wanted to release the tension by talking. Now silence creates space. In that space, you hear your inner voice more clearly. You begin to notice which thoughts are truly yours and which ones were shaped by fear, habit, or the need for approval. This awareness is not comfortable at first, but it is honest. And honesty with yourself is the foundation of inner strength. Carl Jung believed that most people live on the surface of life, never meeting their deeper self. They play roles, wear masks, and repeat explanations that sound reasonable but feel empty. When you stop explaining yourself, you slowly remove those masks. You no longer rush to prove that you are good, right, or worthy. Instead, you observe. You listen. You let others speak. This does not mean you agree with them. It means you trust yourself enough to remain calm even when misunderstood. That calm is not passive, it is grounded. One of the most important Stoic ideas is control. The Stoics taught that some things are up to us, and some things are not. Your actions, values, and effort are within your control. Other people's opinions are not. Explaining yourself endlessly is often an attempt to control what cannot be controlled. When you stop doing that, you reclaim energy. You stop leaking power into conversations that go nowhere. You stop arguing with people who are not listening. You begin to choose silence not because you have nothing to say, but because you know when speaking adds no value. This shift also changes how others treat you. People are used to explanations. They expect you to justify your choices, your boundaries, and your silence. When you do not, some will feel uncomfortable. Some may push harder. Others may assume things about you. This is where real growth happens. You learn that being respected is not about being liked by everyone. It is about being consistent with yourself. Over time, people sense this. They may not always understand you, but they begin to take you seriously. Quiet confidence speaks louder than long explanations. Stopping explanations also strengthens your boundaries. When you explain too much, you invite debate. You open the door for others to question, judge, or dismiss your reasons. When you state a decision calmly and stop there, you protect your mental space. Boundaries do not require long speeches. They require clarity. A simple, "This is what I've decided," is enough. The Stoics believed that a person who cannot say no is not free. Silence, in this sense, becomes a form of freedom. There is also a deep emotional benefit. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop reliving pain. Many explanations come from old wounds. You explain because you were once blamed. You justify because you were once ignored. Each explanation reopens that memory. Silence allows healing. It tells your nervous system that you are safe now. You do not need to defend your existence. You do not need permission to be who you are. This is not arrogance, it is self-respect. With time, you realize that the people who truly matter do not demand explanations. They ask questions with care, not accusation. They listen, not to respond, but to understand. For everyone else, silence becomes your filter. It shows you who respects your inner world and who only wants access to it. Jung believed that individuation, becoming your true self, requires letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. Stoicism agrees. Peace comes when you stop negotiating your worth. By the end of this chapter in your life, you are no longer trying to win every conversation. You are choosing where to place your energy. You speak when it aligns with your values. You stay silent when words would only drain you. This balance is not learned overnight. It is built slowly, through awareness, patience, and courage. But once it settles into you, everything begins to change. Not because others changed, but because you did. Chapter 4. When you stop explaining yourself, you begin to experience a quiet shift in how others treat you. People sense the difference even if they cannot explain it. Your silence feels deliberate, not empty. It carries weight. Where you once filled every pause with words, you now allow moments to breathe. In those moments, others reveal more about themselves than you ever could by speaking. They project their fears, their assumptions, and their expectations onto you. This is not something to fear. It is something to observe. Carl Jung often spoke about projection, the idea that people see in others what they have not faced within themselves. When you stop explaining, you stop interrupting this process. Instead of correcting misunderstandings, you let them unfold. This teaches you a powerful lesson. Many reactions have nothing to do with you. They come from unresolved inner conflicts in others. Understanding this frees you from the need to defend your character or justify your choices. You realize that clarity does not come from persuasion, but from presence. At this stage, silence becomes a mirror. When someone challenges you and you do not rush to respond, they often grow uncomfortable. They may push harder, speak louder, or try to provoke a reaction. This is not because you are weak, but because your calm unsettles them. Most people are used to control through emotional exchange. When you refuse to participate in that pattern, you quietly reclaim your power. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive, and only when it truly matters. Stoic philosophy teaches that not every thought deserves expression, and not every impulse deserves action. By practicing restraint in speech, you train restraint in emotion. You learn to pause between stimulus and response. In that pause, freedom lives. Instead of explaining yourself out of fear of judgment, you choose when and how to speak based on values. Your words become fewer, but they become sharper, clearer, and more meaningful. People begin to listen not because you talk more, but because you talk less. This change also transforms your inner discipline. You start asking yourself deeper questions. Do I want to explain because it is necessary, or because I am uncomfortable with silence? Am I seeking understanding or approval? These questions bring self-awareness. Over time, you notice that many explanations were never required. They were habits formed by insecurity. As those habits fade, a stronger sense of self takes their place. You no longer feel the urge to over-clarify your intentions or defend your boundaries. As your need to explain weakens, your boundaries strengthen. You no longer negotiate your values through endless conversations, you live them. When someone crosses a line, you do not argue. You act. Sometimes that action is distance. Sometimes it is a calm refusal. Sometimes it is silence itself. This is not coldness, it is self-respect. You understand that your energy is limited, and you choose carefully where to invest it. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires separation from collective expectations. Silence plays a key role in this process. When you stop explaining, you stop asking permission to be who you are. You stop shaping yourself to fit the comfort of others. This may lead to misunderstanding, but it also leads to authenticity. And authenticity, once established, does not need defense. At this point, you begin to feel lighter. Conversations no longer feel like battles to be won or impressions to be managed. You speak when you have something real to say. You listen without preparing your response. You allow others to think what they will. This does not make you careless. It makes you free. You trust that the right people will understand you without constant explanation, and the wrong ones never would have, no matter how much you tried. By mastering silence, you gain a deeper sense of control over your inner world. You are no longer pulled into unnecessary conflict. You no longer waste energy correcting every false assumption. You recognize that peace does not come from being understood by everyone. It comes from understanding yourself. And once that understanding is strong, silence stops feeling like absence. It starts feeling like strength. Chapter 5. By the time you reach this stage, silence no longer feels like something you are forcing. It becomes natural. You no longer count the moments you do not speak or remind yourself to stay quiet. You simply act from a place of inner certainty. This is where real power begins to grow. Not the loud power that demands attention, but the calm power that does not need approval. You notice that when you stop explaining yourself, your energy is no longer scattered. It stays with you. Your mind feels clearer, and your emotions feel steadier. Carl Jung believed that much of human suffering comes from living in ways that are not aligned with the true self. Explaining yourself constantly is often a sign of this misalignment. It means you are trying to make the outer world comfortable with choices that your inner world already understands. When you stop explaining, you are choosing alignment over approval. You are saying, without words, "I trust my inner compass." This trust slowly reshapes how you see yourself. You begin to respect your own decisions more deeply. In daily life, this change shows up in small but meaningful ways. When someone questions your path, you do not feel the urge to list your reasons. When someone misunderstands your silence, you do not rush to clarify. You allow people to think what they will. This does not mean you become cold or distant. It means you become selective. You speak when there is connection, not when there is pressure. Your words become fewer, but they become stronger. Silence also teaches you patience. You learn to wait without anxiety. In conversations, you allow pauses without feeling the need to fill them. In conflicts, you allow emotions to settle before responding. This patience protects you from regret. Many words spoken in haste cannot be taken back. Silence, on the other hand, gives you space to choose wisely. It allows your response to come from clarity rather than impulse. As you grow more comfortable with not explaining, you may notice that some people drift away. This is natural. Not everyone is comfortable around someone who does not seek validation. Your silence may make others aware of their own insecurities. They may feel unsettled because they can no longer predict you or control the conversation. This is not a loss. It is a realignment. The people who remain are those who respect boundaries and value depth over noise. Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Stopping the habit of constant explanation is a powerful step in this process. It separates your identity from other people's expectations. You stop living as a reflection of how others see you and start living as an expression of who you are. This shift brings a quiet confidence that cannot be faked. It is felt, not announced. There will still be moments when you choose to explain yourself. Silence does not mean refusing all communication. It means choosing it consciously. You explain when it builds understanding, not when it feeds insecurity. You speak when it brings clarity, not when it seeks permission. This balance is important. True silence is not avoidance. It is awareness. Over time, you realize that most explanations were never truly needed. People who respect you will understand without long speeches. People who do not respect you will not be convinced, no matter how much you say. This realization is freeing. It saves you time, energy, and emotional strain. You stop carrying conversations that were never meant to be carried by you alone. As this chapter closes, remember this: silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the space where self-respect grows. When you stop explaining yourself, you are not withdrawing from the world. You are returning to yourself. And in that return, you find strength, calm, and a sense of wholeness that words alone could never give. Chapter 6. At the final stage of this journey, silence is no longer just a behavior. It has become part of who you are. You no longer see it as a technique to protect yourself or a rule you must follow. It is simply how you move through the world. You speak when words are useful and stay silent when they are not. This balance brings a deep sense of peace. You realize that most conflicts in life are fueled by unnecessary explanations, defenses, and emotional reactions. When those fall away, life becomes lighter. Carl Jung taught that maturity comes when a person stops seeking validation from the outside and begins to live from inner authority. This is the heart of everything you have learned so far. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop asking others for permission to be who you are. You no longer need people to agree with you in order to feel secure. This does not make you cold or distant. Instead, it makes you grounded. Your relationships improve because they are no longer built on pressure, justification, or fear of misunderstanding. One of the most powerful shifts you experience is how others respond to you. People sense when someone is centered. They may not understand it consciously, but they feel it. When you stop over-explaining, others listen more carefully when you do speak. Your words carry weight because they are rare and intentional. You are no longer trying to convince. You are simply expressing truth. Some people will respect this immediately. Others may feel uncomfortable, especially if they were used to controlling you through guilt or questioning. This discomfort is not your responsibility. Silence also teaches you to let go of outcomes. In the past, you may have explained yourself because you wanted a specific reaction. You wanted understanding, agreement, or forgiveness. Now you realize that you cannot control how others interpret your actions. Jung emphasized that true freedom comes from accepting what is outside your control. When you stop explaining yourself, you release the need to manage other people's thoughts. You act with integrity and let the results unfold on their own. Another important lesson is learning when explanation is still necessary. Silence does not mean withdrawal from life or refusing to communicate. It means choosing clarity over noise. There will be moments when explaining is an act of kindness or responsibility. The difference now is that you explain because it aligns with your values, not because you are afraid of being judged. Your words come from calm intention, not emotional urgency. This distinction changes everything. As you continue forward, you begin to notice a quiet confidence growing inside you. It does not announce itself. It does not seek praise. It simply exists. This confidence allows you to face criticism without collapsing in praise, without becoming dependent on it. You understand that both are temporary. Jung believed that the strongest people are those who can stand alone without becoming isolated. Silence helps you do exactly that. You remain connected, but not entangled. Your inner dialogue also changes. You no longer replay conversations in your head, wishing you had explained better or said more. Your mind feels less crowded. This mental space allows creativity, insight, and self-awareness to grow. You begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. Decisions become easier because they are guided by inner clarity rather than external pressure. Life starts to feel more intentional. In this final stage, you realize that stopping explanations was never about others. It was about returning to yourself. It was about reclaiming your time, energy, and self-respect. You see that silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is strength without aggression. It is confidence without arrogance. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop leaking power and start living with quiet authority. This is where the journey completes its circle. You are no longer trying to prove who you are. You are simply being it. And that, more than any explanation, speaks louder than words.